There are few characters I love more in all of South Park than Kenny McCormick, a stance I've made pretty clear on the channel over the years. But when you look at all of the most important Kenny episodes across the series, there's one that, to me, represents peak Kenny. The episode that both expanded Kenny's history and backstory and exemplified his entire evolution up to that point. No, I'm not talking about Kenny Dies or Best Friends Forever or Mysterion Rises. I'm talking about Season 15's The Poor Kid, the episode that placed Kenny and his siblings in an agnostic foster home and gave us the series' only solo Mysterion adventure. But most importantly, through the proper introduction of Kenny's sister Karen, this episode explores some of Kenny's most important character traits. So let's take a deep dive into South Park's poorest kid through the episode, The Poor Kid. Kenny is obviously no stranger to major medical issues, and I mean major. Poor guy has racked up an unbelievable number of deaths over the course of the series. Many of these were freak accidents, but some were completely avoidable. I mean, remember when that doctor replaced his heart with a baked potato? That was a bad doctor, and poor Kenny might have had it a little easier if he had used the best tool for finding doctors you can trust, ZocDoc, which is today's video sponsor. ZocDoc is a completely free website that helps you book high-quality, in-network doctors so that you can find yourself a physician who actually listens to your needs. They've got in-network appointments at nearly 150,000 providers across all 50 states. I mean, we're talking primary care, mental health, dental health, skin care, everything in between. They have it all. You can search by symptom to find the care you need, whether you want an in-person or virtual appointment. There are easy-to-use filters so you can see what doctors take your insurance. You can filter by location. You can even see who is the most highly rated by verified patients. And when you find the right doctor, you can immediately see their appointment availability, making it easy to book with the click of a button. I actually recently had an eye issue and had to go to the optometrist. ZocDoc made it easy to find an in-network doctor who was close to me, and it truly could not have been more easy than that. ZocDoc appointments happen fast, usually within 24 to 72 hours of booking, and there are even same-day appointments available if you really want to get in there quickly. No need to even talk to anyone, just find the right fit and book with a few clicks. Stop putting off doctor's appointments and find a doctor who will care and understand you. Go to ZocDoc.com/Johnny2Cellos or click the link in the description and find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. The Poor Kid is South Park Season 15's final episode, and despite not really having much of a focus on it in the episode itself, Matt and Trey cite the Penn State Jerry Sandusky scandal as the fuel that got the story moving. Pretty dark place to draw inspiration from, but hey, this is South Park. Though this was the thing that got the ball rolling, it really only manifests itself in the episode through Mr. Adams, the Child Protective Service caseworker, who just makes inappropriate Penn State jokes across the entire thing.
Would you like to go to Neverland Ranch, a Catholic church, or Penn State University? We're having fun here, aren't we?
But the real meat and potatoes of the story is obviously Kenny and his siblings being put in foster care, which was apparently an idea they had thrown around many times before.
And we hadn't done anything around Kenny for such a long time that I remember this whole discussion started as like, what can we do with Kenny and kind of make it about him? And we had the idea before that he gets sent to a foster home, and so that we started just kicking around that whole thing.
I did find this statement kind of interesting because obviously, though the superhero trilogy put focus on a lot of different characters in the season prior, it also featured like the most important lore drop in Kenny's history via Mysterion, so I did feel like Kenny had gotten some focus just in the season before, but we'll touch on that more later. It was nice to hear them vocalize that they wanted to focus on Kenny for an episode and really made a point to find a story, a sentiment they've actually sort of made fun of in more recent years.
Like, Kenny, I haven't even heard you say anything in like 4 months.
The episode opens on the McCormick household. Stuart and Kevin are fighting, Carol is holding a crying Karen and aggressively trying to separate them, and Kenny is watching a show called White Trash in Trouble. He pretty quickly realizes that the show is live and that they're encroaching on his own house.
And if you look closely in the backyard, you can even make out what appears to be a meth lab.
To me, this always felt like a pretty natural and well-executed inciting incident. For one, the reality show / PBR angle is very funny, but there's also a reason that Matt and Trey had said they'd kicked around the idea of Kenny going into foster care many times before. McCormick's being deadbeat parents is a big part of Kenny's characterization, and the meth lab reveal here was actually seeded many seasons prior in the episode Lil Crime Stoppers.
Alright, so I have to start having the McCormicks make our meth again.
This was also showcased again really explicitly a few years after The Poor Kid in Stick of Truth. There's a whole mission where you go to their meth lab. But this incident obviously leads to Kenny and his brother and sister being sent into the foster care system, and to me, the McCormick siblings are definitely the most interesting interesting development in the episode.
Part of the idea was, we've seen Kenny's brother and sister a lot of times in the show, and we never even named them, really. I think we had to go back to like season 4 to see one time their names had been mentioned to see what they were.
Interestingly, while I don't know the exact episode where they first named Kevin, they definitely had never named Karen within the text of the show before this episode, The Poor Kid. Allegedly, the original script for Starvin' Marvin all the way back in season 1 described a younger sister for Kenny, but she was never animated into the episode if that's true. The first time a younger sibling for Kenny is even hinted at is in Cartman Joins Nambla, when Kenny's trying to desperately stop his parents from having another baby, which of course ultimately turns out to be Kenny himself. South Park, normal show. Let's keep going. Karen actually wasn't introduced until season 9's Best Friends Forever. The first time she's featured in a shot is the McCormicks at this amusement park here, which is mostly just meant to show that Kenny is playing his PSP at a bunch of different places. And then she's later shown with the rest of the family when they learn that Kenny is in a vegetative state. Though she and Kevin have no lines in this episode, they both smile when they learn Kenny is still alive, and then this is followed by a pretty distraught look when they learn all of his brain cells have died. And that's like the only real hint at characterization we get for Karen up until The Poor Kid. Kevin is kind of an even more interesting case because though he has been featured in many episodes dating all the way back to season 1, he only has a speaking role in 3 episodes, one of which being this one, The Poor Kid. In fact, Karen gets more to say here in her speaking debut than Kevin has across the entire South Park series. Matt and Trey admitted that though they intended on trying to expand these characters, they ultimately felt it better to tell the story through Kenny.
We were just like, can we get into their characters at all? And then we ended up not really getting so much into their characters, but we just thought it was a cool thing that Kenny had to be kind of Mysterion for his little sister.
And I am really inclined to agree with this decision here. The Mysterion and Karen angle really is what I'm most drawn to in this episode. For one, I love that though all of the kids have superhero personas across various episodes, as well as the Fractured But Whole game, this is the only solo adventure for any of them. And I think it works so well because while most of the kids are just playing, Kenny's superhero persona is so rooted in his characterization, and this is the most real that superhero ever feels. Mysterion was obviously first introduced a couple seasons prior to this, but without explicitly revealing that it was Kenny. Then, in the superhero trilogy just 1 season prior to The Poor Kid, they not only explicitly revealed that Kenny is Mysterion, but that he has a real power, and that Kenny is 100% aware of his continued cycle of death and resurrection. And that reveal, for me, just completely recontextualized so many of Kenny's actions. Kenny had previously been shown to be a pretty selfless person in specific scenarios, but to realize that every single time he died, or any time he did something that risked his death, he knew that that was likely to happen, that his life was likely going to end. It changes the way you look at his actions over the series in countless ways. And also, obviously as spelled out in Mysterion Rises, it paints the picture of a pretty tortured kid, not just enduring countless painful deaths, but the psychological trauma from the fact that he cannot share this fact with anybody. I mean, that is a pretty hardcore origin story, especially for a 10-year-old, on top of him having a really rough home life and abusive, neglectful parents. It's what makes Kenny's decision to be Mysterion so impactful, turning his curse into something that can actually help people. It's also why, in retrospect, it makes so much sense that Kenny was the foil to the Coon in season 13. Cartman's entire motivation to be a superhero was selfish, fully in it for clout, to look cool and be popular. Kenny actually tried to turn his trauma into a way to help people. He's like the polar opposite of Cartman here. And this is why his role in The Poor Kid, as his sister's guardian angel, also just fits perfectly. He's using the result of his traumatic circumstances to shield Karen from further trauma. But before we dive fully into that, let's talk about the Foster family. As far as comedic premises go, this is the absolute highlight of the episode for me. Matt and Trey mentioned they had long thought about a Foster family plot for Kenny, but couldn't quite crack the take.
It took us a while to get, like, what's the joke of the foster home? Because the thing about, like, oh, there's this, mechanized, industrialized thing where they try to adopt kids to make money. It's like, I don't know, it seemed like it had been done before or whatever. And then...
Or that he goes to a rich home, that seems so dumb.
Yeah.
Honestly, there definitely could have been stories within these ideas that would have worked great for South Park, but I really respect Matt and Trey's mostly continued efforts to avoid anything that feels like it's been done before. And I'm glad that they did, because where they landed is truly so funny. Obviously, hyper-religious foster homes are also an existing trope, and one simple subversion suddenly makes this idea incredibly fresh.
We came upon the idea of the militant agnostics, and that seemed like there was something to go on.
Just on its face, militant agnostic, it's like an oxymoron. Obviously, the entire point of agnosticism is admitting you can't know something for sure. So for them to be insistent that these kids are always unsure, it's so funny. It's a great idea.
David, do you believe in God?
I don't know.
Right!
The detail that they only drink Dr. Pepper and only allow their children to drink Dr. Pepper is such a unique look into Matt and Trey's minds. Referring to Dr. Pepper as an agnostic flavor is definitely one of those things that nobody on Earth had ever thought before, but everybody who heard it immediately understood it.
Nobody is sure what flavor it is, and nobody can be sure.
I think one of my favorite low-key details in the episode are the parodies of overt Christian wall art and phrases turned agnostic. Bless this home, maybe. Believe that there are different possibilities. Be joyful always, for this may be God's will if he exists. And of course, the explicitly stated agnostic code.
We cannot know with certainty if God or Christ exists. They could. Then again, there could be a giant reptilian bird in charge of everything. Can we be certain there isn't? No, so it's pointless to talk about.
I also think it's uniquely funny to place Kenny into a forced agnostic home, when in universe he is one of the only characters who has definitively experienced the afterlife. The only kid who actually can be certain that there is a God. Though I guess a ton of people did meet God in season 3 in that one episode. South Park's weird. I think even though I see this as the absolute peak in Kenny episodes, the other impressive aspect of the poor kid is that they also squeeze in a perfect Cartman subplot. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Cartman's schemes that end in him fully getting his comeuppance, and this episode is like all comeuppance. Once Kenny is taken to foster care, Cartman's big concern is not the fact that one of his best friends is gone, but determining who the new poorest kid in school is so that he can fully rip on them. Pretty classic Cartman. He recruits Butters to figure out exactly who the new poor kid is, and side note, I don't think I ever really clocked just how in-depth Butters' investigation here goes. He cross-references kids who get half-price lunch coupons with tax records, kind of an unofficial return for Inspector Butters, and it reveals that the new poorest kid is actually Eric himself. I love that Eric's obsessive bullying tendencies basically just have him victimizing himself here. Literally nobody cares who the poorest kid in school is but Eric. And even though nobody was gonna find out that it's him, he is sure that Kyle is scheming in the same way that he was. He basically just 8 miles himself, aiming all of his "your mama so poor" jokes directly at himself.
I beat you to it, Cap! My name is not Cap.
Even though all of Cartman's poor jokes are basically just kind of old standards, the slight shift in angle here makes it really funny, because even though Cartman is obviously telling old jokes, he's saying them completely earnestly. Like he almost doesn't even realize they're jokes, he just thinks they're real concerns about being poor.
My mom is so poor when she heard about the Last Supper, she thought she was running out of food stamps. Oh. It's not funny, Mom!
Definitely a funny insight into Cartman's mind, and pretty classic for him to try and get himself put into the foster care system so he can be less poor. Often Cartman stories are his schemes and plans working until he eventually gets that comeuppance later, but I love that every single step of the way in this one, there's a new comeuppance. Eric requesting a foster family in Hawaii is hilarious, really showing how Eric believes the world revolves around him entirely. He did not even consider that he might get sent to Greeley.
Your foster home is here. Pretty much the exact opposite of Hawaii.
What? Greeley?
But let's get back to what really draws me to this episode: Kenny, Karen, and Mysterion. I love that it isn't until almost halfway through the episode that Kenny shows up as Mysterion, as Karen cries in bed at night. And I love the implications here, since Karen clearly recognizes Mysterion, refers to him as her guardian angel, and says that he always shows up when she's sad. The idea that Kenny has been routinely using his Mysterion persona to try and help his younger sister, it's really sweet, making sure she knows that her parents going to jail was not her fault, and that she knows she isn't alone, that he will always be there. It's one of my favorite Kenny scenes pretty easily, honestly. But one thing I think worth pointing out is that even though Kenny is obviously using his Mysterion persona to make Karen feel safer, he's also still making sure she feels safe as her big brother. Throughout the episode, we see that Kenny is the one comforting Karen through the hardest moments, holding her hand in the back of the police car, holding her close when they're talking to their caseworker at the police station, and even at their new school as he walks her to class.
I'll see you at recess, right?
Kenny's two-pronged approach is actually so smart for so many reasons. For one, it makes Karen feel like she has two people watching out for her, but also Mysterion can be so much more impactful as a sort of symbol. I guess that's just like the Batman thing, but take the recess incident for instance. If Kenny had been the one to beat up Jessica Pinkerton and protect his sister as himself, he would have probably gotten himself in trouble, he would have completely shifted everybody's perception of him as the new kid in school, he probably would have shifted his own sister's reader's perception of him as well, and not to mention, Kenny could be then targeted by the bullies that he stood up to. But by doing this as Mysterion, he showcases a persona that is obviously mysterious and leaves everybody talking. Nobody is going to mess with Karen after this, and nobody is going to come after Mysterion.
Make sure everybody in this school knows.
I also love that Mysterion's protection ultimately extends to their entire foster family. Karen's guardian angel motivates the militant agnostics to punish their kids for being so certain about seeing an angel, and Kenny basically just causes them to question their uncertainty, which is also just another very funny concept. Agnostics questioning their lack of faith.
It was like a little mystery person flying around.
Almost like some kind of agnostic angel.
And Mysterion's whole question mark theming is obviously a perfect foil for the agnostic antagonists here. And bringing it back around to the PBR white trash show, it's a great full circle touch. This whole episode just kind of comes back around perfectly. It's funny, I was actually always a little confused by this Kenny death sequence at the very end. I think I just saw it as something random forced into the picture to hit Cartman one last time so that he didn't end the episode with a win. But I cannot believe that I did not realize that this is the reptilian bird from the Agnostic Code. I already loved this episode and didn't catch that this was just a great callback to an earlier joke. Ultimately, The Poor Kid is not just an expertly crafted South Park episode, it represents a beautiful culmination of Kenny's evolution as a character. It uses the most important aspects of his character history, like his poor parents and rough home life, and it combines it with, at the time, the exciting new developments that helped push his character forward, namely the Mysterion persona, a development that in itself recontextualized so much about Kenny as a character. I think it firmly placed him in his role as the best of the boys, the most selfless kid in South Park. But most of all, the proper introduction of Karen allowed the combination of these pieces of Kenny to be portrayed really beautifully through new character dynamics. It's one of the sweetest relationships in the entire show, and they would even lean on it a couple more times over the years. In season 19's The City part of town, we see Kenny once again act as the only family member who is there for Karen. There's this scene where Stuart berates her and the other kids for daring to ask for anything when they don't bring in any income themselves, and we see Kenny run off to console her. After this, Kenny spends the entire episode working his ass off for City Walk, and this isn't so that he can help his dad bring in income for their house, he does it so he can buy Karen a new doll. It's honestly another of the sweetest moments in the entire series. They also followed this relationship up one last time in the Fractured But Wholes DLC, From Dusk Till Casa Bonita, which honestly might even deserve its own video at some point. This one once again sees Kenny as Mysterion, trying to prevent Karen from falling too far down the vamp kid rabbit hole. It's all rooted in Kenny's concern for his younger sister and him maybe being a bit overprotective, but the final beat is once again a really sweet moment for these two, revealing why Karen hung out with the vamp kids in the first place.
I just wanted to have some friends to play with. My brother, he's my best friend, but he's always too busy to hang out with me.
Oh, well, I'll have a talk with him. I'll make sure he spends more time with you. I promise.
It's clear that Matt and Trey know that there is a ton to mine with this dynamic and relationship, and honestly, I really hope they explore it even more someday. We've really only gotten these 3 stories that focus on Kenny and Karen, and I think it's likely one that other fans of the show really appreciate as well. For now, The Poor Kid remains, in my opinion, the quintessential Kenny episode, building off of his tumultuous home life, expanding his role in his family, and exploring his Mysterion persona in a way that fully exemplifies why Kenny is Mysterion in the first place. The big question is, will we ever see another Mysterion or Karen story in South Park in the future?
We don't know. We can't possibly know.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.